The planet of Talia was small, isolated, and now in danger. The planet's population had always lived peacefully, farming the rich land and trading with nearby systems. But everything changed when the alien invaders arrived. They were unlike anything the people of Talia had ever faced, truthless, powerful, and determined to take the planet for their own. Captain Alara watched the horizon from the window of her command center, her heart heavy with worry. The city behind her was quiet. Now, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. The invaders were coming. There was nothing they could do to stop them. The enemy forces had already taken the outer cities, and now they were closing in on the capital. Talia's forces were outmatched and outnumbered. The last battles had been lost, and the people were losing hope. There was only one thing left to do: send an SOS. Alara had heard the stories about the Deathworlders, a terrifying race known for their brutal strength and powerful ships. They had a reputation across the galaxy for being unbeatable in combat, but their reputation for violence also made them feared by many. It was said that they didn't fight for good, they fought only for survival and dominance. But now, Alara didn't have any other choice. Her people needed help, and the Deathworlders were the only ones who could save them. With a deep breath, Alara turned and gave the signal. The transmission was sent out, broadcasting across the galaxy. "This is Captain Alara of Talia. We are under attack. We need help. Please, we are begging for aid." For a moment there was silence. The room was still, the only sound the hum of the communication equipment. The crew watched anxiously, waiting for a response. The fate of Talia was in the hands of whoever received the message. Alara's heart beat faster with each passing second. Then, the screen flickered to life. It was a message from the Deathworlders. The face of a large, muscular man appeared on the screen. His eyes were cold, his expression unreadable. Alara had heard that Deathworlders rarely spoke, and their leaders were even more silent. But the man in front of her spoke clearly, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "We have received your message, Captain. We are sending assistance." Alara's heart lifted slightly. They were coming. The Deathworlders would save them. Or so she hoped. But then the man's next words made her pause. "A single ship will arrive shortly. Prepare yourselves." Before she could respond, the screen went dark. The transmission ended as quickly as it had begun. Alara sat back in her chair, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. One ship. That was all they were sending. It's not an army, not a fleet, just one ship. And she had no idea what kind of ship it was. The crew around her seemed equally unsettled. They were all trained soldiers, but none of them had ever seen a Deathworlder ship in action. What could one ship do against the enemy forces that surrounded them? Was this truly the help they had been hoping for? Or was this just another part of their planet's fall? Alara stood and walked to the window again. Below, she could see the smoke rising from the ruins of the outer cities. She could hear the distant rumble of explosions and the faint crackle of blaster fire. The enemy was getting closer. Time was running out. A sudden thought struck her. What if the Deathworlders weren't here to help at all? What if they had something else in mind? The reputation of the Deathworlders was not one of kindness. They were feared across the galaxy. Known for their destructive capabilities, their ships could tear through entire fleets in seconds. The last thing she wanted was for her people to be caught in the crossfire of a war they didn't start. But there was no turning back now. The message had been sent. There was no way to take it back. Captain Alara clenched her fists. She had made the decision. Now, she would have to trust that the Deathworlders would keep their word and help Talia. She hoped she wasn't making a mistake. As night fell over the city, the sky was suddenly lit up by the glow of something large moving through the atmosphere. Alira's heart skipped a beat. The ship was here. The Oblivion was unlike anything anyone on Talia had ever seen. It was enormous, with sharp angles and dark, imposing metal. It seemed to block out the stars as it slowly descended toward the planet. No one knew exactly how long the ship had been in space, but it was clear that it was built for one thing: war. Captain Alara could feel the ground tremble beneath. her feet as the ship's engines began to power down. It was a force of nature, coming to change everything. The only question left was, would it be their savior or their doom? As the massive shadow of the oblivion descended upon the planet, a deep unease settled over the people of Talia. The ship's size was unlike anything they had ever seen. It filled the sky, blocking out the stars, casting a dark veil over the city below. The ground trembled slightly as the ship's engines powered down. People gathered in the streets, looking up in awe and fear. Captain Alara stood at the command center, staring at the monitors, her mind racing. The Deathworlders had kept their word, but what exactly had they sent? The message had been clear, yet unsettling. We are sending assistance. One ship will arrive. She glanced at her officers, who were equally uncertain. They had prepared for many things, but this was something else. The Deathworlders were known for their power, but no one could say exactly what they would do with it. Were they really here to help, or did they have other plans? The ship hovered above the planet, silent for what seemed like an eternity. It wasn't until the first flashes of light streaked across the sky that anyone moved. It was the ship's weapon systems activating. The sounds were thunderous as beams of intense light shot down to the surface, striking key enemy positions. The people of Talia had never witnessed such destruction. The enemy forces that had been threatening the capital were now under fire. Explosions rocked the ground and smoke billowed into the air. The enemy's response was swift, but it was clear they were not prepared for this kind of attack. Deathworlder ship fired with precision, decimating everything in its path. Alara watched the footage from the city's surveillance cameras. The Deathworlders' weapons were unlike anything they had ever seen. The enemy forces were being driven back quickly. It seemed like they were unstoppable. But with every blast, Alira's unease grew. The people of Talia had never asked for this kind of help. They'd only wanted a chance to fight back, not to be caught in the crossfire of such a ruthless war machine. The communications officer suddenly turned to Alara, her face pale. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the Deathworlders. They're requesting contact." Alara took a deep breath. It was time to speak with the commander of the Oblivion. She knew this conversation would shape the future of Talia. What if the Deathworlders wanted something in return? What if they had other plans for the planet? "Patch it through," Alara ordered. The screen in front of her flickered to life, revealing the face of a large, intimidating figure. Commander Vork was a Deathworlder, his features sharp and severe. His eyes were cold and calculating. There was no warmth in his gaze, no sign of mercy. Alara steadied herself, maintaining her composure. "Commander Vork," she said, her voice firm, "what is the meaning of this? We asked for aid, not for your forces to destroy everything in their path." Vork's expression remained unchanged. "Your enemies are being eliminated. We were tasked with helping you win this war. The quickest way to ensure victory is to wipe out your opposition." Alara clenched her fists. "At what cost? How many of my people will you destroy in the process?" Vork didn't flinch. "Enemy is your problem. We do not care about collateral damage. Our mission is clear. Neutralize the threat." Alara's heart sank. The Deathworlders were not here to protect the people of Talia. They were here to remove the enemy, no matter the cost. It was a cold, efficient solution, and it filled her with dread. "I understand," Alara said, though her voice was filled with hesitation. "But I need to know, Commander, what do the Deathworlders expect in return for your help?" Vork's expression didn't change. "We are not here to make deals. You will survive. That is enough. We do not require your gratitude, only your cooperation." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Alara alone with her thoughts. The room was silent except for the hum of the communication equipment. Alara stared at the screen, unsure of what to think. She had never imagined the Deathworlders would be so ruthless. But in this moment of despair, she had no choice but to accept their help. They had the power to turn the tide of the war, but at what cost to her people? As the minutes passed, the reports from the front lines came in. The enemy forces were retreating, their positions crumbling under the relentless assault of the Oblivion. The battle was over. The enemy had been defeated, but as Alara looked out the window at the dark shape of the Deathworlders ship, she couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger was unfolding. Her planet had been saved, but she feared. It had been done at the cost of its soul. The battle for Talia had shifted dramatically in the past few hours. With the Deathworlders ship, the Oblivion still hovering high above the planet, the enemy forces were falling back. Alara stood at the window of her command center, staring out at the massive shadow of the ship. The view was haunting. What had once been a peaceful sky was now filled with the dark silhouette of the warship. The city was quiet now. The sounds of explosions and gunfire had faded, replaced by a tense stillness. The enemy was retreating, but no one on Talia was celebrating. The cost of this victory was becoming clearer by the minute. The Deathworlders had come with their own brand of mercy, ruthless, unrelenting, and with no care for the lives of Talia's people, Alara couldn't help but wonder about the true motives of the Deathworlders. They had promised aid, but their help came with a price. What did they expect in return for their intervention? What was their plan for the future of Talia? As if on cue, the communications officer turned to her. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Captain, there's a transmission from Commander." "Vork," he said, his voice trembling. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. She had been dreading this moment. The Deathworlders had saved her planet, but their methods had been harsh. What did they want now? "Put it through," Alara ordered. The screen flickered to life, and once again, the stern face of Commander Vork appeared. His cold eyes met hers, and for a moment, Alara wondered if he even knew what empathy was. His expression was unchanged, as always. "We have completed our mission," Vork said, his voice deep and unyielding. "The enemy is gone, and your planet is safe." Alara nodded, though she didn't feel safe. Not yet. The city had been spared, but what about the future? The Deathworlders might have been able to defeat the enemy, but what would happen now? "Happens next?" Alara asked, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. Vork paused before responding. "You will rebuild. We will stay until your planet is secure." Alara's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean by secure?" "Is she?" asked cautiously. "We never asked for your forces to stay here. We never wanted this to be permanent." Vork's eyes narrowed, and a slight, almost imperceptible smirk appeared on his lips. "Your world is now under our protection. You will not be left vulnerable again. We will ensure your safety." Alara's mind raced. The Deathworlders had not only defeated the enemy, they were now implying they would stay on Talia. Their presence would forever alter the planet's future, whether Alara wanted it or not. "We didn't ask for this," Alara said firmly. "We never asked for your protection. We don't need a constant reminder of our dependence on you." Vork's voice remained calm, as if he were speaking to someone who had no choice but to listen. "You needed aid, and we provided it. We do not ask for your thanks. But we will not leave until we are certain your enemies are gone and your people are safe." The Deathworlders do not abandon their commitments. Alara felt a surge of frustration. She had hoped for help, not for a new master. "This was never about you taking over," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We needed help to fight, not to live under your control." Vork's gaze remained fixed on her. There was no warmth in his expression. "You misunderstand. We do not seek control. We offer protection. Your world is too valuable to be left to those who would see it destroyed. We will not leave you to your own devices." Alara wanted to argue further, but the words didn't come. What could she say? The Deathworlders had given her people a chance to survive, but they had done so at the cost of their freedom. Could she ask them to leave? Could she tell them to? Go when they had been the only reason Talia was still standing. The screen flickered again, and Commander Vork's face was replaced by a view of the Oblivion. The ship was still hovering in the sky, its dark silhouette looming over the city. It felt as if it would never leave, as if it would always be there, watching. "We will monitor the situation until we are certain that no other threats remain," Vork's voice continued, though the screen was now silent. "You may rebuild, Captain, but do not forget that your survival was due to our intervention. And remember, we are always watching." The transmission ended, leaving Alara alone with her thoughts. She stood there for a moment, staring at the dark sky above, her mind heavy with the weight of their decisions. The Deathworlders had saved them, but at what cost? Her people were safe, but for how long? Would they forever be tied to these ruthless warriors? Would Talia ever be free again? The battle was over, but the war within her mind was just beginning. She had no choice but to work with the Deathworlders for now. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Talia's future had been forever changed, and not necessarily for the better. Days passed, and the shadow of the oblivion remained hanging over Talia. The Deathworlders had not left. They continued their watch. Their presence a constant reminder that the planet was no longer fully in control of its own destiny. Captain. Ilara couldn't ignore the strange feeling that had settled in her chest. The Deathworlders had saved her people. But they had also claimed a piece of their future. The city was beginning to rebuild, though much of it was still in ruins. The enemy forces were gone, their strongholds reduced to rubble by the Deathworlders. Overwhelming firepower. Ilara had never imagined that her people would survive this war, but now she faced a new question. What would survival look like? She walked through the ruins of the city, the sounds of rebuilding echoing in the distance. Builders were working on repairing buildings, while others cleared the debris. The people of Talia were determined to restore their home. But Ilara knew it would never be the same. How could it be? The very nature of their existence had changed, and with it, their sense of freedom. The Deathworlders had made it clear they would not leave until Talia was secure. But what did that really mean? Every time Ilara spoke to Commander Vork, he reminded her that their mission was not finished. They were watching, always watching. There was no escaping their presence. The day arrived when Ilara received another message from the Deathworlders. The transmission was brief, but it carried a sense of finality. Commander Vork's face appeared on the screen, as impassive as ever. Captain Ilara, Vork began. The enemy forces have been eradicated. There are no more threats to your planet. You are free to rebuild, but remember, we are always here if you need us. Ilara's heart sank. Free to rebuild? She had no doubt that the Deathworlders had crushed the enemy with precision, but this was no simple victory. It came with a price. The Deathworlders had not left. Their heavy-handed methods of help left her questioning what kind of future Talia could have now. Thank you, Commander, Ilara said, her voice tight. But what of the future? What of our planets? Independence? Vork's cold eyes stared back at her. Independence is a relative term. You are safe. That is what matters. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Ilara once again alone with her thoughts. What did it mean to be safe under the watchful eye of the Deathworlders? What did it mean to be protected by an unstoppable force that never asked for thanks? Only obedience? In the days that followed, Ilara began to see the full extent of the Deathworlders' influence. Their ship, the Oblivion, hovered overhead every day, a constant, looming presence. The Deathworlder soldiers moved through the city, watching, guarding, and silently taking control of key positions in the government. They didn't make their presence known in a loud way, but it was clear they were always there. Ilara knew she couldn't ignore them, not anymore. The Deathworlders had become a part of Talia's future, whether she liked it or not. One evening, as Ilara stood on the balcony of the command center, she felt the wind on her face. It was a peaceful moment, but the feeling of unease still lingered. The city was quiet, but it wasn't the peace she had hoped for. It was the peace of control, of knowing that the Deathworlders were always present. Watching, waiting, her thoughts were interrupted by a voice behind her. Captain Ilara, there's something you need to see. Ilara turned to face one of her officers, who looked both confused and worried. What is it? She asked. There's been a report from the eastern sector. Some of the rebuilding teams found something. Strange? Strange? Ilara repeated, her heart quickening.
What?
Do you mean? The officer hesitated before speaking again. It looks like there are signs of something alive. We're not sure what it is, but it doesn't look like any of the enemy forces. Ilara's pulse raced. Was there something else out there? Some new threat they hadn't seen yet. I'll go to the eastern sector myself, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Prepare a team. We'll go immediately. The trip to the eastern sector was quick, though Alara couldn't shake the sense of unease that gnawed at her. When they arrived, they were met by the rebuilding team. They were standing near a large, crumbled building, their expressions tense. Alara could see the debris scattered across the area. But there was something else, something unsettling. One of the workers stepped forward. "Captain, we found this." He pointed to the ground where something was half buried in the dirt. Eyes narrowed as she approached. The shape was large, and it looked unfamiliar. She knelt down, her hand brushing away the dirt. What she uncovered was unlike anything she had seen before. It wasn't part of the enemy's technology, nor did it look like anything from Talia. The object was smooth and dark, with strange markings etched into its surface. It gave off a faint, pulsating glow, almost as if it were alive. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. What was this thing? More importantly, what did it mean for Talia's future? The skies above Veltrax 9 were quiet now. No more screams. No more parasite swarms. No more burning cities. The strange black ship, TSV Deliverance, floated in the upper atmosphere like a silent judge. It had no flag, no color, and no symbols. Just smooth black armor and the cold hum of machines working inside. Below, the survivors of Veltrax 9 watched the ship, unsure whether to feel thankful or afraid. The war was over, but something had changed. The decision in the center of the rebuilt capital, Governor Lynn Marin, stood on a platform. Around her were the last 60,000 survivors of the original colony. Behind her, holograms of the Terran Union's message glowed in the air. Veltrax 9 has been secured. You may choose to integrate with the Terran network, where protection and technology will be provided. Decline, and your system will remain outside our responsibility. This is your decision. No second offer will be made. Marin looked at her. People. They had seen their homes destroyed, their families scattered, and now they stood in a city rebuilt by machines that no one understood. Are we safe? Someone shouted. Marin answered honestly. Yes, for now. But not because of us. Because of them. She pointed to the sky. The truth revealed the day before. A young engineer named Relon Bex had found something in the parasite samples, something no one expected. Part of their DNA was Terran, long ago, before the Terrans became the silent power. They were now. They had experimented with advanced life forms meant to clean planets, absorb pollution, rebuild soil, but something had gone wrong. The life forms mutated and spread beyond control. The project was shut down, but a few specimens escaped into deep space. Now, after many centuries, those same life forms had returned stronger, more dangerous. The parasites were not some alien threat. They were a Terran mistake. Deliverance speaks again just before leaving. Deliverance opened one last message to the people of Veltrax-9. It was Commander Marrakesh. Her face was calm, her voice flat. Her eyes were covered with a soft blue glow from neural implants. This was not a rescue mission. It was a cleanup operation. The threat here began because of us long ago. We came to finish what we started. You have seen what we can do. But understand this, our power is not a gift. It is a responsibility. One we do not take lightly. She paused, then said something that made everyone listen more closely. We do not spread fear, but we will not allow another mistake to grow. If others hide such threats, we will find them. If they become danger to the galaxy, we will stop them. The message ended. Nothing more. No promises. No threats. Just clarity. What comes next in the weeks that followed? Most of the Veltrax 9 survivors chose to join the Terran network. Not out of fear, but because they saw something no other. Power had shown them efficiency, protection, and truth. The new systems delivered by Deliverance were left behind. Farms grew 5 times faster. Air was cleaner. Water was purer. Drones kept watch at night, scanning for any trace of parasite DNA. The planet healed faster than anyone believed possible. The Galactic Union, however, was not pleased. They sent warnings to Earth, accused the Terrans of overstepping. acting like rulers without permission. The Terrans responded only once. A single message, stored in the Deliverance's black box and replayed across neutral space stations. We are not your rulers, but we are the firewall between your world, what lies beyond. If you have better answers, act. If not, step aside. No more messages came. A signal in the dark far away, on another forgotten colony, a small mining outpost called Junos. Reach picked up the story of Veltrax-9. They had their own problem. Something in the deep caves, something moving and feeding in silence. The local fleet said they'd come. But they were months away. The station's commander looked at the old SOS system, dusty and unused. He hesitated, then typed, "This is Commander Talavayan of Juno's Reach. We are under threat. Unknown biological infestation. No help nearby. If anyone hears this, we request aid." He paused, then added something else. "To the Terran Union. If you hear this, we're not afraid. Send the black ship." He hit send. And in the deep dark of space, somewhere, something answered.